probably would have been a lot. That probably would have been a lot more effective had I been using his version and had I been growing all of these in a more controllable area where, I wasn't actually at the incubator farm site. The KNF method does require a little bit more precautions and time than the other solutions do. However, it balances out a little bit because you don't have the expiration date. So if you plan ahead and you're doing this at the beginning of your season, you can literally have all of your solutions made for the entire year and just, dilute them as you need them kind of thing. The conditional methods were the most expensive. And for what I experienced, I would prefer having two of them. So that's going to make it even doubly expensive because I want to say each one of the bottles are roughly like 175, somewhere between 160 and $175 a piece. So that would have been roughly about almost $400, just to get those two, especially in shipping. The Lord, nowadays to ship anything costs you almost $50. So between that alone would have cost you roughly about $400 for those mixes. But alternating between the two is another good option, and you're going to have a lot more effective result. And
so Sharonda, I see your hands up. You want to ask your question?
Yes. Hi, everybody. First off, this is like one of the best presentations that I've ever experienced because I have my little Operation Grow NJDEP pop-up garden in the Greenway here in New Jersey, and I have a terrible powdery mold infestation. I've tried a few things like I haven't tried the baking soda with the water, but of course the baking soda clogged up the plug. So I tried to splash it on, but I think that the cucumbers are too far gone. And I even put in the chat that when you were talking about what nature does as far as balance, I really believe that nature went and attacked my cucumbers because the cucumbers were literally choking all the other plants around it, like wrapping around and choking them. And it was like, you can see like, let me go. And I'm like, let go, like having this conversation with them. And it was like, oh my God. And I spoke to another lady at Branchbrook Park yesterday, and she was saying her cucumbers had that powdery mold fungus as well. And it's so funny how I was already registered for this before that lady told me, because I was like, am I doing something wrong? Because everything had been great. I didn't even have a whole lot of weeds. We just started growing like invasive grasses. And I think it was because of the bird feed, because we're actually growing corn now, 0 hour because of birds. Like I didn't plant any corn. But anyway, I'm actually looking at, and I've been talking to on my mother's side and my father's side, some heirs property in the South, in Virginia and North Carolina. And I want to make sure that I guess I'll preemptively get it done in the morning. I don't know if it's like even like every other day or whatever. And like, what would you say is a greater method of spraying or distributing the milk and water solution? Because I prefer that over everything else because it's a no-brainer, and to me it's easy. And doesn't
I
have
just use a pump sprayer. I literally use a pump sprayer and just walk the row and just make sure. Now, I will say I made sure I saturated not only the top of the leaf, but also the bottom of the leaf and the stem. And kind of like, again, I'm heavy-handed. And so I know one of the things with powdery mildew, and I should kind of skip this in the beginning, powdery mildew will actually live in your soil. And so if you use, let's say, a sprinkler system to spray, in your field, then those water droplets, when they hit the ground, they're going to splash back up and cause the powdery mildew to splash back up on your leaves. So that's another reason why a lot of I was told to use like drip irrigation because that works a lot better. But when I spray everything. So I'm spraying the leaves, the stem, the bottom. I'm spraying the ground around the plant, when I milk, because I wasn't worried about the milk causing damage to like the roots and things of that nature, And then the soil that we're on, our soil is very dry. So I wasn't really worried about oversaturating it as far as that's concerned. However, I noticed when I did the same thing with like the other methods, I did burn some of my plants, and I
Oh,
actually killed, you know what I mean? I killed a couple plants by doing it that way. But the milk was the main one that I really didn't have that problem with. So
and that's why I want to deal with the milk, because I feel like the sulfur and everything else may change other things. And I noticed that some of my mint that was next to the cucumbers got a little of the powdery mildew, whereas my other mint and everything else is perfect. It's beautiful. Just the two containers where there's cucumbers. And I was actually trying to do like a companion planting to where I had the cucumbers and the curly kale. And at first those cucumbers were doing really well, but then somebody transplanted, they moved it, and then those other cucumbers got crazy. So I think the curly kale was helping it. But also my what you call it? My cucumbers are misshapen now.
oh,
They're very deformed because of the mildew. It's weird. So first they were growing long and cylindrical. Now they're kind of fat and curved at the end, and some of them are like yellowish. It's weird, still on the vine. And I think it's the mildew. So I actually, like I said, I tried to do the baking soda and water, splash it on. Some people were saying, "Oh, just cut it off," and it's like cutting it off is not enough
right.
because it's a mold and it's a fungus, and so it's like I'm showing the roots. And like I was saying, the film Fantastic Fungi talks about that like root system of communication with fungi, and it just seems like the fungi is like killing the cucumbers because they're choking everybody else. So
And they're heavy feeders. I didn't realize, I'm sorry to cut you off. I didn't
no,
realize
it's
how
okay.
heavy a feeder those cucumbers were. And so I try, whenever I plant them, I try to make sure that I'm fertilizing that space really well. I'm adding like a lot of like compost. And one thing that I started doing too was growing comfrey. And so I'll chop and drop comfrey on a regular basis because those leaves grow like super quick. Like I planted like a couple of comfrey plants, and those things are starting to take over my backyard. Like they will literally, once you get them stabilized, they will just keep flourishing. They come back every year. So I'll just come in once the leaves get to be like a nice size, and I'll chop a whole bunch of them down, and then I'll just cut them up and just spread the leaves throughout my bed to kind of help, make sure that I'm keeping nutrients in that bed so that, my cucumber, well, I do that for everything at this point, but just so that my cucumbers aren't like depleting the soil so much so that, like Mother Nature doesn't have to tell the fungi to come and kill my plants, kind of thing. So I just try to make sure I keep it well fed.
And I want to say I'm growing comfrey. A lot of my plants I foraged from other gardens, and some I bought from Home Depot, some I did from seed. But my comfrey is part of the sensory area that I have. And what's so interesting is my fertilizers that I used were rusty water, banana peels, and eggshells. And it's so funny because I feel like that combination of like starting with the eggshells and then the bananas and then the rusty water, I feel like it kept a lot of weeds out. So what was really cool is, thank you for the comfort, because I didn't know that was such a fertilizer. They say it mends bones. I actually got a comfrey salve from a nearby garden, little farm area, and that it really helps with your bones, ladies.
Yes, it does. It's amazing. So yeah, definitely. And I messed around, and I have like a bed that's like in my backyard that's probably like 2x4 that has strawberries in it. I now have a comfrey plant that's growing in there with, I didn't plant it. It is now growing in with the strawberries. So I left it. And so now I'll just go in and I'll cut it back because the leaves get huge. And I'll just cut it back and I'll just break it up and leave it in it. And it's really been feeding even my little strawberry bed and keeping them flourishing because with the heat and everything we had, I thought my strawberries were dead. Then they kind of just sprung back. And I kind of, I attribute that to the comfrey.
Really? Can I tell you that I had 3 different areas of strawberries, and the first area with the sensory garden, it was weird, like somebody dug something up. I don't know. But now with my mint, because it was covering it, the strawberries have bounced back. It's so weird. Yesterday, I just noticed them flowering and fruiting.
Oh,
which, they're coming back. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, isn't it
So
fun?
let me
Yes.
jump in on your conversation,
Yes.
just because I am watching the time and I want to be respectful of coming up on the 1 o'clock hour. If anybody needs to hop off right at 1, no worries there. The presentation, the wonderful presentation, thank you, Donnie, has been recorded. So we'll be able to post that up on our Farmer Researcher Network site. So it can be watched again, because I know there's a lot of good information on those slides we might want to write down, listen to again. Also, the chat has been active. There's some good information in there. Like, for example, after a comment about something getting clogged, was it like baking soda and water? You know, there was a comment about taking out the filter on the pump sprayer and using a larger tip, right? So check out the chat before you go. Recommendations for books are in there, as well as upcoming events. This group will be at the virtual meeting next month, but we also have a couple of DIY workshops coming up, the research question workshops, and moving some of our projects forward a little bit further. So our in-person events coming up, we will be at the Forest Farming Conference in Southern Ohio. That's September 27th through 29th. I put that one in the chat. Our presentation is on Sunday morning, the 29th. This is at a super cool plant sanctuary in southeastern Ohio. To check that out. And then we also are going to be at the Ohio State Beekeepers Association meeting, which is at the end of October. That is actually on Central State campus in Wilberforce, but we'll be doing an in-person workshop there as well. That's a Friday, Saturday conference, the 25th and 26th of October. Our workshop is the pre-conference event on Friday, the 25th. There is a registration fee for the Forest Farming Conference. There is not a registration fee for our pre-conference workshop for the State Beekeepers Association. But we've got a lot going on, and we're also trying to move forward some of our project ideas. There's been a lot of talk about trials on specific veggies, types of veggies, ones that are going to be climate adapted to our regions. And that's a combination of trialing the veggies and seed saving too, plus other projects in the works. And then a quick reminder, if you are thinking about a project, reach out to us to network and review the projects. We're happy to help. Some of the SARE grants are open right now. Those farmer researcher grants like Donnie had are open, as are some other ones. So lots going on. Always appreciate everybody's support. And we hope that we get to see you again. Thank you so much, Donnie. And thank you everybody for questions and adding to the conversation.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and so much fun doing this. Every time I tell people all the time, I'm like, oh, if there's any kind of research project I want to be a part of it, let me know. I love seed saving. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have too much stuff to do. But no, I would. And I did post in the chat the link for the Drake, the guy that's in Hawaii that does the Korean natural farming. And he actually has his classes are posted on YouTube for free. So you can literally go and watch like the whole program, his whole certification program for Korean natural farming on YouTube for free.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Have a great day.
Thanks all.
Bye.